All right, welcome to the Milford Board of Selectmen meeting, March 26, 2018. First order of business is the signing of the warrant.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll also vote in favor, and that's unanimous. How about the approval of the March 12th minutes?
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second as well, Mr. Chairman.
I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous. And we also have March 19th.
Yes, I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Second as well, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous. I do want to take a second to welcome Troop 4, the Boy Scouts. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. If you have any questions after the meeting, we have a pretty lengthy agenda, but if you have any questions afterward, we'll be glad to chat with you, okay? Sorry I didn't get some time ahead of time. Had a back-to-back meeting today. We're going to go right into public hearings and scheduled appointments. Ray Ozier and Joe Callery for the July 4th parade. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening.
All right, last time you were here, you started discussing the possibility of a 4th of July parade. Just what I know from social media and everything, you two have been
Very busy.
very busy.
Yeah.
You wanna
Not
just-
teasing, and I think everyone seems to be pretty excited.
Okay,
It's a consensus.
A lot of good feedback.
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Is there anything that you need to update to us at this point, or anything you need from us at this point?
I think from the last time we were here, we were obviously looking for your support. But one of the other things we wanted to make sure is that this is actually a town event. That way it'll cut down some costs. That way the police detail is really what we're trying to.
That would be
not
the
have to pay
biggest
for.
cost, yeah.
Okay,
And we were told that if it was a town-sponsored event, we would be all set with that.
okay, well, I think what we'd need to do, and we can certainly talk about that now, we probably just have to figure out, I don't know if he's obviously sitting right behind you, we don't have to put him on the spot right now, but I don't know if you reached out to the chief at all. What is it?
It's all set. We discussed it.
Oh, okay, so budget-wise, whatever it is, okay, because I didn't know if there was a need for any additional, okay,
Make it official, I
Just
suppose.
the issue of closing the road,
okay,
diverting traffic.
okay.
And I think once we got that okay, we were gonna start our
Yeah.
internal getting everything going. Okay, that's one of the major hurdles we wanted to get over.
And we could certainly either come in during meetings and update you on our progress, or
Right.
email, or, whatever's easy, but we'd like to keep you guys, obviously, in the loop.
No, I know, I'm sure this board appreciates that, and also, as the chief mentioned, when we have to just approve the blocking of the road and everything, obviously, we have time to do that. I know you know the date and going forward, so we can certainly do that whenever it's necessary. We just wanted to make sure, more so for the people watching at home, that, you've already obviously communicated with the chief, and he's obviously on board, and going from there. Any other questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman. So I was just curious, some of the feedback you got. I mean, this is an event that used to be held in town. Is that?
Well, I asked that. I asked when the last 4th of July parade was, and somebody could only remember the bicentennial. So there was
Okay.
only one 4th of July parade.
I don't know if I was thinking of like a circus parade that would come by, but it was
Yeah,
always
maybe it
something
was
on the
that.
4th of July.
Because I remember you represented that. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't recall one, but then again, I was in and out. And
I think there was a festival down at, what was it, Fino?
Fino
Maybe
Field, yeah.
Fino.
Okay.
So I think people were excited. I think they want more activities like this in town. And it seemed to get people in a positive mood on those Facebook groups, instead
Yeah.
of complaining about things, they were actually excited about it. And I really thought that we'd hear some negative
Right, nothing.
comments, but nothing.
Everyone wants to help out. They're all asking. for
Yeah.
ideas.
That's
Oh,
great
lots
to
of
see.
What can we do
volunteers.
to help out?
You're right, social media isn't always real kind to people, but.
Yeah.
Well, I think, oh, go ahead, sorry.
But, one of the things I was thinking about, and to kind of formalize this, we're talking about a parade on 4th of July, we're talking about, the birth of our country. We're talking about another reason for the community to celebrate some of the great things that are happening here. And you're right, I did see a lot of feedback, and I've heard a lot of feedback. And so my question to the board is, should we not create the ad hoc 4th of July committee and officially kick that off, setting a chairman and a co-chair, and allow that ad hoc committee to form under the umbrella of the town officially? It's just something to think about. I'm happy to make a motion, but it's a surprise. But, that's what you're hearing, is, make it an official town-sponsored event.
Yep.
And, why not give it that umbrella and that official,
We would appreciate
That
that,
would be-
absolutely, yeah.
something to think about. And
Something
we
to think
can
about.
do
I
it
think that's
now.
great. I mean, Jim, I remember even back in 1992 when Milford had a huge piece of the quincentennial celebration, there was an official ad hoc committee in the
Yes.
town, and then that one was a subset of the state one and everything. So
Yep.
I think that's the way to go. I was just going to ask, are you two obviously amenable to?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
Chairing,
We're making-
co-chairing?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
Because there may be some administrative costs that we can help them out with, paperwork and whatnot, and it's official committee. Now, you just have to understand that when you meet, there's public meeting notice and that
Okay,
type of
yep.
thing, and you've got that understood.
Yep.
I would welcome it and open it up to as many people as can possibly participate, right?
Fantastic.
That's awesome, thank you.
We don't have a motion yet. I'm happy to make a motion. I just don't want to surprise people. Go ahead.
Mike?
What is the actual parade route?
It would be the same as the Santa Parade.
So your plan wouldn't be to have it end up down at the fireworks
Yeah.
demonstration?
Well, that's the night
Or
before.
something like
Oh, that's
that.
the
That's
night
the third,
before,
yeah.
okay.
But we thought in the future, maybe directing it to Fino and maybe having a celebration there.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, are you planning some kind of a celebration
just
afterwards? Or
yet.
just like the
Just
Santa
trying to
parade,
get
it
this
just kind of
kicked off
breaks
first.
apart?
Get the parade
first
going
year?
first.
Start small.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Get the interest out there, make
Yep.
sure everyone's not looking at it as like, oh, just a one-time thing, just keep it rolling.
Okay.
And what do you, I guess I would say, who are you planning to have in the parade?
Well, we're looking for organizations, obviously. Anybody that's involved with the Santa Parade. Joey just contacted.
I reached out to the National Guard to see if they can get maybe some artillery, their color guard, more of a military presence and.
Patriot cheerleaders. Some of this stuff does cost money.
Right.
But if we could always do some kind of GoFundMe or a Kickstarter to get some money to pay a professional marching band that does this for a living, or the Patriot cheerleaders, just to make it a little bit more festive. Uncle Sam on stilts, I'm sure there's a guy that does that for $200.
Right.
So we'd
I'll
like.
let you and your committee come up with the specifics of your
Yeah,
budget.
but that's the idea, I
Request.
think. We want to make this not just town-related, but put on more of a show, too, for the town.
Yep.
With a lot of entertainment. We've reached out to the music community, too, and we're
Yeah.
hoping that a few musical bands will.
If you keep the parade route short, you're more likely to still have the number of band members that you started with at the end, right?
Yeah, right.
Because on the 4th of July,
Yeah.
it's much different than any other event that
Yeah.
we've got.
Right.
Memorial Day is hot,
Right.
so
Yeah.
careful with the 4th and how much,
Somebody
you
had a
got
great
marchers
idea
and
about-
bands.
Who had the idea with the water guns?
Yeah.
Where we had a section of town or the route that was dedicated to getting wet. So
Okay.
somebody would be on the.
The
flip-
band members would appreciate their instruments getting
No,
wet.
the crowd,
Oh, okay.
there'd be a section for it, a splash zone, I guess,
Okay.
or something.
I'll let your committee work it out.
Okay.
But I like I think I like the idea of, I love the idea of the 4th of July parade. And I'm looking forward to a committee getting formed to kind of collate these ideas and bring them together and have it create a plan that, just like other events, when it's the first time, it evolves over time.
Yes.
So you'll decide to not do some things the following year, but do
Yeah.
more of something different the next year.
Yep.
Okay.
Can I, gentlemen, do you have a number? Do you want us to include a number of folks that you would look to be appointed to this committee? Or do
We
you
do have
want us
our
to leave
wives,
it?
Molly and Renee.
Yep.
Do you want to leave it open so you can come back to us?
We can discuss this a little bit more
Yeah.
and figure out exactly now that we would have that kind of a
So
support.
how about we still do a motion to name you the co-chairs, and then you
Okay.
can kind of go from there?
Okay.
Do you guys think that's a good way to start?
And I think this needs a little bit of a budget too, so we've got to look to insert something before the budgets get finalized. Something small, but something to start, right?
That'd be nice.
Maybe administrative.
Appreciated, yeah.
Okay.
So, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. And the motion is that we formalize this volunteer effort with a committee, an ad hoc committee for 4th of July, and that we name Ray Ozier and Joe Callery to co-chair that effort. And they'll come back to us with follow-up ideas and number of committee members they'd like to have serve. Not too unwieldy, but at the same time, something manageable and, okay. So that would be my motion.
All right. I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, and then maybe we get back together in either a couple of weeks or next month.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up to that, they're gonna need some help, and they're gonna need a little bit of budget. So, my suggestion is that we direct Rick to come up with the best place to put a $2,000 budget together, just to get them started with administrative overhead and costs and different things. We put that in the form of the motion as well.
I think you should also, Joe, keep in the back of your mind, Joe, and Ray, I should say, I'm sorry, is the number that you pick, try to keep it an odd number. I'm sure everybody's gonna get along, but just in case.
Yes.
You know, you wanna have a majority,
point,
you know,
yeah.
you don't wanna be deadlocked in a room,
Yep.
3 and 3,
Good idea.
you know, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mike, do you second?
I seconded it.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, we'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous, and that's for a $2,000 initial startup budget.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
guys very
Thank you, thank you for stepping up.
All right.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
See you, Ray.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the board. What happened to invitation?
I can certainly come back to it, Warren, but, and I'm gonna, well, actually, I can explain that now if you want. If this has to do with the Personnel Board, we wanted, through Rick, to set up and put you on the agenda. That's what I had messaged Dennis about, and we went back and forth, and then that's what Rick and I had discussed.
Well, that message never got through to me. I'm no
That we
longer-
wanted to put you on the agenda?
I'm not a member of the Personnel Board.
Okay.
I came Monday night, you were interviewing people, the attorneys, so obviously it wasn't a regularly scheduled meeting. I checked the agenda, I was of the understanding that you have invitation to speak every week. And I came specifically tonight because I do have some comments that I would like to make as a former member of the Personnel Board. And I think it's a great idea, particularly in light of what I have to say, that this board should get together with the Personnel Board. But my comments have nothing to do officially with the Personnel Board because I am no longer a member of that board.
So this is not related to the Personnel Board.
It's comments about things that have.
Warren, with all due respect, I'm honestly not going to allow this meeting and my last meeting as chairman to become a political circus. So
No,
without,
it's not a
no,
political
I believe it is. I was warned, but I wanted to think higher of you and this. I'm not going to entertain it.
Well, I think.
And I think that Rick and I,
You're stifling, free speech in this town, and I think, the members of the general public should be aware of that.
and I appreciate that.
And I think it's a shame that you don't follow your own procedures.
Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman,
Warren.
just one question. Rick, did we communicate, did you specifically communicate with Personnel Board Chairman?
I spoke with Attorney Heller.
Oh, you spoke with Attorney Heller, letting him know that we want to
Yeah,
set
and I
up a
also
meeting with the
spoke with,
Personnel
I
Board?
also spoke with the Personnel
That
Board
has
Chairman.
nothing to do with.
I spoke with both, yeah.
So we've communicated with Mr. Heller, and we've communicated with the Personnel Board Chair that we want to have a meeting? And then we'll
Yes,
set
I
up a
have.
special, okay.
Yes, I have.
All right.
Okay. And we are talking about school safety, so I'd like the police chief and Sergeant Tassino to come up.
Okay. Formal voice, so this is a good lesson.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm sorry, but I already dealt with one.
I saw it on,
brother
I saw it on
this week.
Face, I saw it
I'm
on
dealing with another
Facebook.
one.
I saw it on Facebook that it was a warning that it was going to be disruptive.
Chief, welcome. I'm sorry about that. Welcome, Sergeant Tassino. Just to let the public know and our Troop 4 participants that this board had asked and reached out to the chief through our town administrator for a safety and security for our schools, as well as kind of like an overreaching for all town facilities. I know some of it, as I understood when I read and talked to Sergeant Tassino, we're going to try to be careful with our questions too, and we won't be insulted if we ask questions that you don't feel comfortable answering because of the very nature of the business.
Tactics.
I don't think we're going to get that technical. but
Okay. I
think-
still wanted to
I think the information
throw it out
that's in the memo is, is okay at that level, as far as even the public being aware. I think the public, parents, as well as people that go in and out of public facilities or facilities that are open to the public should be aware of exactly what we're presenting to the board upon your request. I did highlight for the board, you know, the many things that we have already accomplished within the schools, and I'd just like to touch on them very briefly.
Okay.
To move through them, because I think it's important, because a number of these, if you go and use Google or any other means of, you know, social media to go out there, you're gonna find we were either the first community or within the first couple of three to implement a number of these efforts. We presently have two school resource officers. They're full-time police officers from Milford PD that work in the schools, John Tiernan and Joe Gresham. They've been there for many, many years. You know, their role in the schools is, as much as it's a role of security, it's also a role to ensure that it's a safe, secure, and safe environment for kids to learn in. So, you know, as the board is aware, and especially Robbie's aware, that in putting police officers in the schools, something I labor with every single incident is, you know, are we now taking things that were heretofore administrative matters and criminalizing them? So, because the last thing I want to do is give a young kid a criminal history. I think it's really not the right way to go. So, there's not an incident that occurs in the schools that the school resource officers don't discuss it with the Sergeant Detective Ken Kincaid, and likewise with me, and we brainstorm on it about what's the right approach. We do work very, very closely with, from, you know, Mr. McIntyre on down to teachers and other staff in the schools. Joe and John do a fantastic job. A number of years ago, we replaced, myself and former Fire Chief John Toy replaced all the police and fire portable radios. And as a result, we found that we were the first community in the country that we issued portable radios. They used to have those kind you talk around like hunters would have, you know, or kids play with. So we gave them walkie-talkies, we gave them their own frequency, so now they can talk school to school. At Memorial, they can talk to Stacy if something's going on, and let them know they're coming that way. And likewise with other facilities, which I'll touch on. Every principal, every assistant principal, and any teacher that takes kids out of the building, such as recess at Memorial or Brookside, they have the radio. They can not only talk to each other, they click over one channel and they're talking to us. They're talking directly to every police officer and the police dispatch. And they come on periodically. You know, there was a little bit of learning curve there of nervousness. You know, I'm going on to the police radio. No, come on, we want you to be comfortable. So they have used them, but they are a safety component. We also put them at the library. There are two at the library, one upstairs, one downstairs, and there's one at the youth center. So they can communicate. As you know, the youth center is the backup for Stacy should you have to move children to a facility. Panic button from Rave. We implemented it in the schools. It is functioning. We were one of two school systems and communities in the country that were the beta sites for this. That's why the town received it at no cost. It's functioning like a charm. Along with that, we conduct active shooter training for all school personnel. And we've done that every 2 years. So that's about 600 people that we bring together at the high school, and we do training with them. The first time we did it, there was a little bit of trepidation, and we worked our way through that. I met with the teachers union and with then Superintendent Bob Tremblay. And, you know, and we said, if there are people that are just nervous and don't want to come, you don't have to. The interesting thing is a number of them that met with us individually or in a group, some wanted to meet individually, that did come, were pressing Bob 2 years out that, hey, you said you're going to do this every 2 years. It's really a good thing as far as just that rote memory if something does go wrong. Police officers, we've been training in the schools all of the 16 years that I've been here. We're one of the first communities again. If you look at Columbine and others, a number of those children and people, adults, died because EMS services sat out waiting for someone to tell them it was okay to come in. We changed our training protocol before the federal government, particularly the White House is where it came from, suggested the change through Homeland Security. And we began to train with the fire department as well as community, prior to community, actually, it was the other ambulance service. And then, as of late, we've introduced the doctors from the ER into the training, so they know exactly what's going on. The training is really developed into where we do tourniquet training, blood clot training. So that's all equipment the police officers now carry. Every police officer has it. We've been doing that training for teachers and staff in the schools, those that are interested. How many are they buying, Robbie, the tourniquets at schools?
We got a bunch on order. We're looking to equip every room actually with a trauma bag. I mean, that's part of something we're looking to try to do.
So, we're ahead of the curve there. We do have, one of the doctors here in Milford actually goes out with the state police stop team, which is their SWAT team, anytime they get called out. And he's right with them, should there be something go wrong. Someone gets hurt, whether it be, a police officer or someone else, as a result of the event. Lobby guard ID, security check system, you're well aware of that, as far as going into school and being identified. We worked with Dr. Tremblay on that. As far as securing doors, they're now putting them in different schools, and the idea, the people that did the training, the active shooter training, we recommended that they put in the school, in each room, a red dot where the kids could get to and be out of sight. And inside that red dot, it has the classroom number and the exterior door, either letter or number. So you have someone, if something goes wrong in a panic, and they're calling the police, or they use the panic button, they know what room they're in, and they know what exterior door we should come to best access them. And they know that that's the best point to be out of sight. When you think about a substitute teacher, what room are they in, and what exterior door? You gotta be kidding me. I mean, if you take the high school, what's that, 32 doors there, Mike?
Oh, 89, isn't it?
89, okay,
89.
see? I would've got lost with the other 50. So the red dot indicators was really something, and I know that Dr. Tremblay's in the process of doing that. He's now in Framingham within their schools because he believed that was helpful. There's a number of things we've done, Knox box keys, which is basically, you see those boxes that are attached to buildings. It's just access keys so we can get in. We're putting Knox boxes in the cruisers so that we can access keys to get into schools readily, right at the officer's fingertips. So as much as we've done active shooter training, you have to keep in mind that the vest that a police officer wears day to day, that vest is really ineffective with a rifle. So a rifle's going through that vest like a hot knife through butter, and that's the fact. So what we're proposing, and people talk about SWAT, just to clear, we belong to two different regional teams, SWAT teams. When you put the call out, so we would notify for Metro, we would notify Wellesley Police that we need them. They put the call out, and they tell them where to stage. And we would tell them where we want them to stage for them to up the team. You're looking at police officers coming from communities as far away as an hour. So your best, a squad of 4 people is your best movement. We tell them go in. If it's 1 officer, you go in and fight. That's what they're trained to do. If it's 2, it's twice as good. 4 is the optimum because you have 360-degree movement. So I met with Robbie. Will you work at the T? I put together the bomb units at the T, the explosive detection unit. I put together their SWAT team. I built it up from the ground. So I've done it in a couple of different places. I know how it works. He's worked it, at NYPD. So when I received the information from Mr. Villani, I sat down with Robbie and I said, look, we have to brainstorm this because I have to tell you, the thought of sticking a police officer every day in every school just to sit there, I think it's ineffective. I think it's really an inefficient use of resources for this reason. You could place a police officer that sits at Memorial all day long, and if he's not the right personality that just wants to sit there all day, he's going to be looking for a police job elsewhere. My thing was, okay, if something occurs, and I'm at the school resources, the resource officers should remain as they are, because their role is they're doing investigations along with school personnel. I mean, inquiries more than investigations or interrogations. I mean, they're figuring things out so that we get it right and dealing with parents and young people, and should it go to court or not go to court? I've always said, a lot of things are better dealt with in the living room than the courtroom. And that's our approach as far as the schools go. So we looked at this, myself and Robbie, and said, we could have a high presence at the schools of police officers, uniform officers every day. As well as, there's been concerns expressed by personnel here at Town Hall. I did send the board emails I've received from the library, emails I've received from the youth center, expressing similar concerns. I know Sue Clark has said it to me verbally, once she heard, and she's not just jumping on the bandwagon, but there's concerns. And, I'll say it again. I think Milford's an extremely safe community. But if something does go wrong, I think that we ought to have a core group of officers that have the up training, and I mean training that's increased to the level of those same tactical people you would call upon, and as well as the equipment. So the difference there is now you have a tactical vest, you have a tactical helmet. Other than that, the long weapon, the handgun, they're all the same. It's more, how do you protect those officers moving into a bad situation so that they can mitigate it immediately? And I think we took a good hard look at it and started crunching and, okay, how would you deploy them? So if we had those officers working Monday to Friday, so an administrative schedule, they gain, as a result of the 4 and 2 schedule, they gain 17 days off as a matter of contract. I mean, we could work it with those officers that during the school's year, only one of you can use any kind of leave time at a time. So there's always 3 of you, which is a good core group to have. During the summer months, as happens with the school resource officers, unlike detectives, they use their days, every 6 weeks or so, they get a day, they'll use it. School resource officers don't. They'll wait, and I let them compile those days. And when they hit summer, they use those 17 days plus their vacation. So they're pretty much on a teacher schedule, to be perfectly candid, which is good for us because now they're in the school every day that the school's open. And likewise, these officers. So one day you could have 2 of these special operations who are, again, school resource officers. You could have 2 of them at Memorial, 1 at the high school, 1 at Brookside. The next day, you have 2 at the high school, 1 at, so it would be the supervisor who would make the determination in moving them around. The other thing is they grow a real serious familiarity with all of the facilities because they're in them. There's times when Joe Gresham or John Tannen talk to me and, the nomenclature of this area of the high school.
C-wing and.
I know the A-wing, I know
Yeah.
the B-wing, but then they start to talk about, well, it's down here and over there, and it's it took me years to learn McCausland's Market, so, Paul Murphy had to teach me all of the landmarks in town so that when people talk to me, I know where I'm going. But I just think, if we bring on, a supervisor, 3 people, and we dedicate them to that, as they're moving from school to school, they also have the ability to check the other town facilities, so we can increase the level of security there as well. We don't want to be burdensome. And this is our approach, and I've discussed with Robbie, and Robbie would be the supervisor. And it'd be, no, we're going to go in the schools and just like the other guys. We're going to talk to the kids. He and I, we do this reading of the books with the kids when that comes around every year. So I think that kind of an introduction, we have kids in the high school now that know Joe Gresham from the elementary schools because he's been there so long, and every time they go to Washington, they want Big Joe to go with them as one of the chaperones. So, you build those relationships, and that's what we're looking for. But we're also looking to have a core group of officers that if we get an inkling something's not right, they're there first. If another officer gets there first, you go in. They're right behind you. And to know that that's coming behind me, I'll say to you, is a blanket of security for me if I'm the officer going in, because I would go in. So knowing that the vest I have isn't going to really deal with some of the firepower that's out there. I did also take a look, there was an announcement after I sent this to the board through Mr. Valani. Attorney General Sessions came out and indicated that the federal government was going to release COPS money to hire school resource officers. And that's why my emphasis on this is, yes, they have special operations capabilities, but they're going to be school resource officers. If those funds are released, I just want the board to understand that I'm moving forward. It's $75,000 per officer a year for 3 years. So, it's not hard to say, thank you, So, and I think that we would be in a good position based on the things that I touched on earlier, the things we've already done in the schools, to show that we're taking this very, very serious, as well as the support of the board and the school committee and the school administration. I did talk to Dr. McIntyre about this approach, and just to get his thoughts before I put it all on paper, and after Robbie and I had talked, and he's on board. He thinks it's the right approach, He knows the services he gets now. To increase them, he's thrilled. I gave the board a breakdown based on, today's contract, what the cost would be, both wages as well as equipment, uniforms, et cetera. And then I did give you a total cost per year. You'll see that it goes down and then goes back up. And the reasoning for that is, in your third year, you're looking at replacement of vehicles, because we roll vehicles every 3 years based on mileage. It doesn't mean that these vehicles may not stay longer, so that number will fluctuate. It's if you did replace them every 3 years based on mileage, as well as number of the vehicles, we put meters on the engines, so it's engine hours. And then in the fifth year, the reason the cost comes back up a little is you're replacing all of that armor. So you have to, every 5 years, our standard vests are replaced at no cost to the community. 50% of the money comes from the state and 50% from the federal government. And we track every officer's vest. So when we're coming up to that fifth year, we order them a new vest, and it's paid for by the state and the feds. So they will not pay for this tactical gear. Now, if in the monies that Attorney General Sessions, when he releases them through DOJ, if there are equipment opportunities there, we'll take advantage of those as well. Robbie?
Yeah, just to kind of go off what the chief was saying, and why is this so relevant, and, how did we end up here? Well, I think we know how we all ended up here. My phone, I think it was 2 days after Parkland, was just blowing up. And this isn't a quantum leap for us. We already have a quasi-special ops in me. My truck, the paramedic unit. It's, when it first started, I think some people are like, why do we need it? Now, people are like, we can't live without it. The impact that's made on life and safety, can't even begin to quantify. And, and I want to thank Selectman Buckley for when it started. He was a big voice. I don't think you were here yet.
I certainly
You certainly weren't either.
Thank you, Rob.
But you, spoke in favor of this. And now it's become a mainstay of the town, and, we've done a lot of good work with it. So this is the next step. And as someone who's a disciple of the special operations community, again, this isn't a quantum leap for us. This is very easy to put in motion. I know there's a cost with everything. I'm not, blithely unaware that things cost money, but I don't think I don't think there's a calculator big enough to estimate the cost of an active shooter incident or any other incident like this. This is proportionate. Again, I'm not going to talk about the clandestine operation and how we would conduct our operations, because that's the whole point of it. But to quote, people have called me, people need to know, the children are off limits, and we need to have a strong presence. And, for lack of a better word, I want these people with nefarious intent to be afraid of the Special Ops Division. And also spoke with Detective Sergeant Kincaid about doing warrant stuff with him when we're not doing stuff at the school, on days that the school isn't open. And we can even go further with that, where we have traffic complaints and doing the BAT operations with the state police and sobriety checkpoints. These are all things in special operations. These are, what I'm saying, not just indicative to SWAT. And there's the difference. The SWAT operators that I know, that's a very specific task, that's a specific mission. It's our intent with these operators to have them brought up on a much higher EMS level. And the benefit there is, are they going to be paramedics like me? Maybe in a couple of years. But to bring them up so we can actively treat patients instead of just clearing threats, okay? So that's my goal with Dr. Gedeke. You can't find a department that has a doctor who was part of the department. We do. We have 2. That's unheard of.
Great guys, too.
Yeah. And Dr. Gedeke is actually, he's a special operations doctor. And we have them, and he's come out with us with the detective division when we've hit warrants with the DEA and stuff through town. And I think that the overall health and wellness of the town, knowing that there's a special operations team out here, I think that's going to change the way a lot of, evildoers do their evil deeds. Because sooner or later, we'll show up at your door. And we have the resources. And things like parades, we'll be there for that. I think there was once there was a high school jamboree where there was a bunch of football games of the high school all day long. Well, there'll be a special operations team there somewhere. We're not just going to cover the Monday through Friday school event, and that's why this really is the lowest scaled-down version of this. I know it seems like a lot, but to cover all these things like the chief said, and to have movement, days off, people going to court, life happens, this is really the minimum manning. Can I see us in the future maybe implementing a canine division and moving forward that? Absolutely. But this is a place to start for us. And again, I just, there was a young lady I was watching, I feel bad, I can't remember her name, she was part of the Parkland group, and she said, I don't want a bunch of cops just sitting in my building, and I don't want my teachers to have guns. She's like, I want, to feel safe, the teachers need to teach, and we have, a great working relationship with the schools. And this is just the next step in all that.
If I could, Robbie touched on a couple of really valid points. One is, these aren't going to be officers that are just sitting on their hands waiting for the bell to ring. They're going to be out in the community, and they're going to be performing other services as well, whether it's support for the detectives when they're going to take care of people that are selling traffic and drugs here in Milford. But also, from that point, the paramedic work that Robbie's done is, it's sainthood. The number of lives he saved just by himself. So to increase that is just, it's a direct benefit to every single person that lives in this community. If I take sick, I'm hoping Robbie's working, and that doesn't discredit community ambulance or the firefighters. Believe me, I love the fire department. I swear by them, as well as the ambulance crews that we have. And I think that, his second point about just in dealing, generally with, the message, I'm not looking to send a message to people that, you ought to be afraid of us. It's the last thing I want. My message is, look, we work closely with the school department to ensure the safety of the kids. And we're going to have the resources to accomplish that. And that's what that's the whole approach here when we put this together. So I really appreciate, Robbie's help. He and I spent hours just back and forth with, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And some of it by text and email, and, get back to me on this, different thoughts. So he come up with some fantastic ideas, but particularly that one of, make these guys, multi capabilities, not just, you can call SWAT if you need SWAT, and that's what they do. Scotty Nelson, that's what he does. Scotty Nelson is not coming in and going to start to treat someone that might be hurt. That's not his role. So that's what we tried to put together, and I know that you folks are going to need time to digest it all, but we appreciate the opportunity to come in and discuss it with you. If you have questions.
No, thank you both for being here, gentlemen.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, I brought this up a few weeks ago, and I started off with a target and a goal. Send a statement that kids are off limits, and the second target was to make our schools the safest place on the planet. That was a target. And if we're not there today, and we're not there tomorrow, it means that we're always striving to make our schools the safest place on the planet. For some reason, they've become soft targets. The police department responded. Robbie and the chief put together special operations that would consist of a sergeant, 3 police officers who would receive advanced tactical training, who would be deployed with enhanced protective equipment. So what they're saying is basically, if we set up special operations, we've got to equip these folks to be successful. We've got to train them to be successful. I understood from the information you provided with great detail that the first priority would be to clear threats, and the second priority would be to treat patients, give them specialized capabilities to be able to treat people. Robbie, you have that training for which my family is indebted to you because of my grandson and your response to him, but I think we've got enough information. We've alerted the FinCom to be aware. We said we would do 5- and 10-year budget plans and only address those things out of budget that were emergency. We said, and I heard you say it, Will, that you didn't want to be one of those public officials standing in front of a news crew saying, we never thought it would happen here. The fact of the matter is, we have to plan for these things. And the chief and the sergeant have outlined a plan that tells us the cost for those officers, the equipment, the training. They've even gone through the detail to let us know what these police officers are going to be doing when school is not in session. They've answered every question I would ask. And I don't see a reason why our children in Milford are not entitled to a high level of security. And I know this is going to result in more money. I can't imagine the cost that the Parkland School Department is going through. And that's a financial cost. Think about the emotional cost of the families, friends were, unheard of sacrifice and heroism by coaches jumping in front of kids. I don't want to be there. I hope we're never there. I know that the police department would wish their services not be used as much as it needs, but we have to be prepared. This looks like a prepared plan, and this looks like something I can support. I want our kids to be safe. I want our kids to be off limits. And I know this is going to result in additional safety assessments and threat assessments. They're going to find things as a part of their ongoing duties and training. They're going to become more aware in new tactics, new concerns that schools have identified that are a particular threat. People are using vehicles, so where are the threats to our playgrounds? Where are the bollards and ornamental rocks and things that, I'm sad to say, are sometimes necessary to prevent vehicles from getting into areas they shouldn't. I think this is the beginning. I would support it, and I would go as fast as I possibly could to implement it without delay. That's my thoughts. I'm prepared to make a motion, but I'd like to hear the thoughts of the board too. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just touch on, I mean, when you talk about other areas, one of the areas we cited in there, which I neglected to mention, was the hospital. As we know in Connecticut, the guy drove a car into the emergency room, not to the emergency room, literally into it,
True.
and started a fire. We have officers do walkthroughs every shift through the ER at the hospital. And those walkthroughs prove to be beneficial not only to us, but to the staff. You get to know the staff, so, and we're probably up there half a dozen times a day for calls, and the officers now know, there's something to be said for, I'm going up there to help someone I know, so, not that they don't hustle, but, and Robbie touched on one thing, I just don't want it to go by the woods. As far as arming teachers and the rest, I'll tell you, as a police officer, my greatest concern is an issue of friendly fire. When we go into a site, for instance, Joe Gresham and John Tiernan, they actually wear jackets and whatnot that look just like the coaches. They just say Milford Police or Milford PD, but they wear the same clothes that you'd see on a football coach, I guess they had them made for them, so they, in any event, that's a concern we have, without this team, we've had discussions during our training that if other departments come to help us, we have to make it clear to them that we have police officers in here that are essentially in plain clothes. Because you run that risk, all they see is the guy with the gun. And it could be Joe or John who are in the fight with a person who has a gun. So that's a real concern as far as, and in Massachusetts, it's illegal to carry a gun onto school property unless you're a police officer, you have permission by the school administration. So I don't see it happening here in Massachusetts anytime soon, but it's a real concern for police officers because the last thing we want to do is end up in a situation where we end up hurting someone that was actually on our team. That's just not good.
Yeah, and you haven't heard that being talked about very
No,
much.
that argument tends to, it's dropping down on the rungs because everybody, it's either you're in favor of it or against it. But wait a second,
There's more to it.
there really is. So I just wanted to touch on those 2 points, and Bill, thanks.
No, I appreciate that, Mike.
First off, let me say it's sad that we're sitting here this evening having this discussion in the world that we live in today. It really is. But soon to be a retired 9-year school committee member, Chief, I want to commend you and your department for the help that you have given and continue to give to the school district every single year. And I'm going to go as far as saying I've seen all the doors on the outside of the buildings get numbered. I've seen notebooks go in every single cruiser of every building, where every door is, the number that's on the door. Through your help, we've worked with the administration, we've worked with the teachers, that if, they all have phones, when you call it in, call in your room number. What's going on in the room number? A lot of people don't know that, and I'm going years back, that at Columbine High School, they know for a fact those children waited to be executed. Because they were taught the old lockdown. Through your help, your department's help, the Milford Public Schools, we teach 2 different kinds. If the threat is external, we lock the school down, and we go as far as, if you're in the hallway and the school's getting locked down, you're instructed where to go, okay? Exact opposite, if the threat is internal, we teach everybody, get out. Whatever door you're going out, get out and just get away. And again, that's.
Fight, hide, fight. That's the bottom line.
Right, and the active shooter training, you're right. The first year it was little, there was some people that were very skeptical of it.
Understandably.
Second year, we had people that couldn't wait to become part of it. And it's very successful. It's very, very successful. I don't think you can put a price on safety. I don't think that you can't put a price on a life. And so this is a situation where we need to be proactive, not reactive. And if you look at what's going on around the country, it's very, very sad, and you don't know when it's gonna happen. You don't. And I've seen Officer Tiernan, and I've seen Officer Gresham operate in the schools. They're phenomenal. They build relationships with the children. Children become friendly with them. They feel very safe around them. But in my opinion, this is the next step. Because to Selectman Buckley's comment earlier, I don't want to be standing in front of a TV camera explaining why we didn't take action and try to prevent something like this from happening. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. It's sad that you have to have these discussions, but you got to be proactive. And we do a lot in the schools, but again, this is the next step. I know, for example, a lot of people don't know that once we lock the schools down, you're driving home and you say, "Oh, Johnny forgot his lunch." You're not bringing Johnny his lunch. You're going into the kiosk. You're giving it to the school secretary. Well, I just want to. You're not getting anywhere near them. And that's good security. But you also say to yourself, at the high school, we have 2 people all day long. Yeah, they're hall monitors. They're walking around the high school, hitting doors, making sure nobody who's stuck an eraser in the door ran out, because that's how somebody is getting in. It's how somebody's, as sick as it is waiting, watching that. And so you can't be too safe. You plan, it's flawless. I mean, yeah, is it gonna cost some money in the beginning? Absolutely, absolutely. But to know that we've gone to the next level to protect the children, and I take everybody, administrators, teachers, and children, in our district, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to, I always said, when I got elected to school committee, some teachers used to always make it sound like they thought we were going in the classroom and gonna teach, tell them how we thought they should teach. I used to say, no, my job is I've got the money. My job is for you to come to me and tell me what tools you need to do your job. This is exactly what you've done. You've come to we asked for it, you put it together, you've come before us and said, this is what we need to implement this program, to take the security of the Milford Public Schools to the next level, being proactive. And I commend both of you and your department for it.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, gentlemen, we asked for a plan, and you came back in pretty short order with a very comprehensive plan. And I think I'm going to mention that as well, just so the people at home know, prior to them seeing it, that, again, phenomenal. I certainly feel better and feel confident that our kids, our schools, as well as all the other places that you included, that you'd respond to.
Correct.
Which I think is a big key in all this, so.
It is, not to cut you off, Mr. Chairman, it is to look at the big picture of what the special operations team would do. It would also give us the ability to know the schools like the back of our hand. Okay, we just recently did active shooter training at a school. I'm not gonna disclose which one. And I'll tell you, even for myself, going through the school, I found myself making mistakes from the tactical side. I don't need to get into it, because I didn't know the layout of the school like the back of my hand. And why would I? I'm not an SRO, but repetition builds retention. So if we move forward with this, obviously I'll get together with the school superintendent. When school's not in session, even during the weekend, my team will train at these facilities over and over and over again. That's why that number is the way it is, because there's so much training involved. It's not just gonna be, we trained, we're ready to go, okay. No, that's not the way a special operations community works.
Every day's training.
Every day's training. If we're not training, we're not working. Because even working is training for us in the special operations community. Everything's a training opportunity, and we need to stay sharp. And, my hope, like you said, Mr. Buckley, is I hope in 10, 15 years, we're here again, and somebody walks up to me and says, boy, that special operations thing we spent money on, you guys never did a thing. I hope so. I hope so. Other than making arrests and serving warrants and stuff like that, I hope that's all we ever actually do. But, let's, prepare and train for the worst, but hope for the best.
So it was, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. It's important to, Robbie, is a lot of people don't realize the high school's got, I want to say, 1,200 or 1,400 students in it. You got the Woodland Elementary School, it's maxed at 1,195. I mean, these are big populations. You got Brookside, you got Memorial. I mean, by the time you add them up, there's about 4,400 children, just children in our district.
Well, and you
Forget
got
the
Brookside and
administration.
You got Brookside and high school next to each other.
Yeah,
So to me, that's one target.
Yeah.
yeah.
They're both gonna fall.
The new Woodland School, you have to ask the kids for directions when you go in.
You do.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize when you stand, well, there's an administrator on each floor, the principals on the first floor, 2 vice principals, but when you stand in their offices and look all the way down that corridor, I tease them all the time. I say, you better bring a lunch, because by the time you get to the other end of the hall, it's gonna be lunchtime. That's how big it is. And multiple staircases coming up and down, and I agree with you. You gotta learn the schools, because you'll be running around
That's right.
like a crazy man, So, great job. Thank you.
Well, and just for the folks in the audience as well as people at home, we're looking at annual personnel costs of $433,000, equipment and supplies, periodic equipment and supply costs, another $238, for an estimated first-year cost of $671. Those numbers obviously
Correct.
still apply,
Yes.
just so folks at home know what we're looking at. And then it
drive-
goes from there. It drops down to 465 the second year, which you explained how it fluctuates. Third year, 746, fourth year, 556, and the fifth year, 599.
And that's building on the average pay raises that we see, so.
So that's what you use to forecast
Correct,
it.
that's right, so that you, when I said it's today's numbers, for
Make
the
a budget
first year it is.
assumption.
Yep.
Yeah, everything
Well,
else.
that's all you can work with.
Everything else, I try to give you a best sense, judgment that,
Okay.
these are the raises that I've seen out there, not that it's etched in stone.
Well, I know that, how do we want to,
I think we
'Cause-
want to talk to Chris. If
Yeah.
Chris has got a moment.
Chris, do you want to join the gentleman up front? Chairman of the Finance Committee, Chris Moran. We had a budget meeting prior to this. Chris and the rest of the financial team was here with us when we were talking about this and how maybe the mechanics of tackling this going forward and securing the funding.
Yeah, I think that talking as the team, that the best avenue here is to build this right into their budget. So
Their operational
their
budget.
operational budget, because it obviously is going to be a constant
year.
cost over the years.
Yep.
And I think that that's the best way to do it, versus doing an article or anything. I think putting everything in the operational budget under the chief's control in which he can allocate the funds for this stuff, I think it's the best way to really do it. To give everyone a true, accurate picture of what the finances are gonna be. And to make sure that it going forward, it will always be there. It isn't something that I think we would want to do on a yearly article basis for their equipment and everything else. We want to make sure that they have these funds available, and they have them going forward every year.
No, and I think that's key, and I think that's how we came to the conclusion upstairs after all of us talking, because what we don't want to do is be here a year later and figuring out, oh, wait a minute, we have to do an article for this piece of equipment this way. That money's in your budget, the chief will know what he needs to get, you'll know what you need to get, and you move forward, it's already built in. I imagine that would be your preference as well.
Absolutely, because this equipment, much of it, it's suited to the particular officer, so it's not something you just buy off the rack.
Right.
So there's a timeline going out. As I said to you, when we replace vests, we know the beginning of the fifth year who needs one, coming up to the end of the fifth year. So we're already building their vest, the beginning of the fiscal year, so that they have it by the end.
Okay.
And it should be clear that we're operating out of budget. We're reacting to what we see are societal trends. There's been some recent incidents that would change the timing of when we would normally place budget items. But, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to support this budget as requested. I want to allow the FinCom to vet it, because there may be discussions about, lease versus buy on a car, and they're entitled to that type of review, and it ought to get that type of review. And but as a matter of policy, this board, its leadership in the community, has made a request. Our public safety officials have responded to that request. There's nothing I can see that doesn't make sense to me, that it's outlined, it's been explained, and I'd like to make a motion that we support this for the Maytown meeting of this year and allow it to go through the process of FinCom. And if there's changes to the mechanics of how we fund or requests that they need from us, then we'll address those as we go.
I would second that. I think we're in a situation around this country right now that we have to, again, I go back to be proactive. So I would second that motion.
No, and also vote in favor and make that unanimous, so that's all set. And I think this is a good time to add that the one thing that this board has repeatedly said, that when you look at the numbers that are at the police department, the numbers that are at the fire department, what they were years ago, where they are now, there really hasn't been much growth in the sense, and I know maybe even more on the fire department, but looking at those numbers, these are things that we've talked about, we have to deal with them, we have to make our guys and our ladies that choose this profession the safest it can be, and I'm just really proud to be a part of this. Thank
Fair
you.
statement, Will, because back 16 years ago, and then we ran into the financial troubles, not just Milford, but across the country, our allocation of police personnel was 49.
Yep. And what are you now, 40?
45.
45,
So
okay.
it's-
So this brings you back up.
So it just puts us right back there. But it gives us resources that we never had then. Right. And probably didn't feel we had the need. I mean, I saw on the news the other day, you look in the past 10 years, you've had over 200 shootings in schools across this country. I mean, that's,
No, that doesn't even sound real.
you said, Who wants to be, who wants to go and tell a parent or tell a loved one that, look at your husband or wife went to work? Nobody does. And we really appreciate the support of the board.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Mr. Chairman, there was a second C2. My suggestion is we push it off to the next meeting,
Oh, okay.
just to discuss the
sorry, I didn't
payment
even have-
system.
yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, I took the paper
Thought we
clip
took a
out.
lot of time and the appropriate amount of time to go over.
Good night, Rob.
Good night.
Next agenda item is the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one item tonight. I'm happy to report, we received a Milford Youth Center grant. They received this from the Greater Milford Community Health Network, Chana 6, in the amount of $54,000 to support the finishing of 955 square foot undeveloped space at the youth center. This will be used to address the community health improvement plan, which was one of the priority areas, which is to have chronic disease prevention and health promotion. The overall goal here is to create healthier communities and prevent chronic disease by improving nutrition and increasing physical activity. I want to congratulate Director Jen Ward and her staff in securing the grant. The new space will be used in conjunction with the Milford Regional Medical Center to host after-school free classes such as martial arts, yoga, CrossFit training, and various boot camp-style programs. So again, I want to congratulate Jen and her staff in securing the grant. Also, this will also help in completing one of the rooms that was not included in the overall plan to renovate the youth center. So it's good news from that front, excuse me. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman. Just
Nope, that's great. Any questions, Bill?
No questions.
Mike?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Of course.
Rick, that's just another example that the chief kind of touched on, into how the police department, the youth center, the hospital, all working in conjunction. I know every single day the chief has a cruiser, a police officer, stop into the youth center, just walk around, say hi to the kids every single day. The hospital sends nurses. They have some doctors that'll come down and just volunteer their time.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just another example of
a great example of the whole community
a
involved.
whole
in a
community working together.
Common purpose,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Thank you, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
thank you, Mike. Now, under old business is regarding the town administrator's evaluation. I know you all got the evaluation, the process, in our packets this week. Rick also put in a whole lot of backup information on all of his goals and the backup on how he's reached them, how he's working on them, and everything. Rick, I want to say thank you. That was, easy to follow, and as well as proving all the balls you're juggling right now, so it's appreciated. Before I ask the board, Rick, do you have a preference on when or what a hard date is for you to get this completed from me with the synopsis and everyone sorted out? Do you have a preference over the next couple of weeks, or?
Pleasure of the board.
Okay, I just wanted to know if you had a personal preference. Gentlemen, is there an amount of time that you'd like to have? Have you had a chance to go through it all? I know we haven't done the evaluation yet, and that's okay.
My past experience from the evaluation of the superintendent, traditionally, you need a month, you need 30 days. That's my opinion. There's a lot of, and thank you, Rick, by the way, there's a lot of information in here to go through. And with the busy lives that we have, I think if we set, just my opinion, if we set a month, I think that would be
No, and
sufficient.
Rick doesn't seem to have a personal preference either. I mean, we've streamlined this over the last couple of years, so I think when we each tackle it, you're gonna see how concise it is compared to, what we used to do for the
Yeah, superintendent.
for the superintendent. But at the same time, we can provide as much time as we need. So that's fine with me. I just wanna make sure that we at least, document a hard date so that we keep that goal, and it doesn't turn into a moving target, because I do want Rick to make sure that he gets his evaluation in a timely
He's
manner.
entitled to that feedback.
Yep.
The only thing I would suggest, Rick, and I didn't see it here, is self-evaluation.
Okay.
What I would do is take the selectmen's form and go through a process where you generate some narrative and use the form yourself as a self-evaluation tool. That's helpful. It's a process we have at work as well.
Get that.
We haven't talked about that in the past, but, we call it our brag sheet. And it's the opportunity for us to use the form as employees and say, you know, here's what I've accomplished relative to the goal and section. And it gives us greater guidance, and I know you did provide a lot of information that was back up to it.
Okay.
That would be helpful. Say 10 days, is that sufficient
Oh,
time?
yeah, that's plenty of time.
I'm just trying to be fair to you as well, because we needed to integrate it into ours.
Yep.
And frankly, there's some language I can't better that I would utilize some of yours in your own assessment, because I would agree with your comments.
Okay.
And there are others I might add different verbiage, because sometimes employees sell themselves short in the opinion of a manager, and there are other times where we may adjust it slightly, so.
Sure.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, no problem. So can we pull up a calendar and?
Got one right
I
here.
don't mean to be, oh, you already pulled it up? All right, I don't mean to be a stickler, gentlemen, but I think if we don't nail down a date.
I was gonna say April 30th.
Okay.
Does that work, Bill?
That works.
So just so we're all clear, by April 30th,
Now, the only suggestion I have, having done this before, I know you did it before in other boards. My suggestion is that the chair call a date by which the other members' input is due to them. so
well, that's
they
what I was
can
just gonna
compile
ask. What's
it.
this April 30th date? Is that when I'm getting it, or
That's when
Rick will
you're-
have it in his hand?
No, I said you're getting it. That's what
Okay.
I would think.
Or you are getting it,
Right,
right? April 30th,
Oh, yeah.
that would be you.
right. Oh, yeah.
So,
Your turn.
so.
Oh, I gotta do it again.
Mr. Walsh.
Thank you for reminding me.
Selectman Walsh, when would you like the
The 30th.
input? The 30th. Okay, very good.
Your face is turning red.
Oh, my gosh.
That works.
Thank you.
Well, it's good we're following your timeline then. No, thank you, guys. Next, agenda item, town meeting articles. Rick, what do you need from us?
Basically, I just want the warrant to be available to the board. You're still gonna have 3 more meetings.
Yep.
Okay, I know we just had a meeting, just prior to this where we touched on some of these items, but again, it's there for the board. If the board wants to wait till the next meeting, which would be April 9th, to begin looking at the articles. A number of them we have combined, as you know, into one
Which is great.
annual recurring type article. So again, pleasure of the board, but I just wanted to know the board that it's there for them and it's available to discuss, when the board is ready.
Any questions or comments?
And so far, we haven't come up with anything new in terms of an article. When we talk about, as an example, the mechanics of the discussion we just had as it related to public safety, as it related on our schools and special ops group, we're talking about incorporating it into the budget. So the article number and article doesn't change. The total or net within that article would. So this is still the articles. Okay.
Great. Mike? No questions. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Next is the job description for the human resource director.
Yes, again, the job description is in your packet. Hopefully, the board has had time to review. I would like to move forward, if that's the board's pleasure, to send it to the personnel board to be reviewed by them and the position rated. And so
I'm certainly comfortable with that,
I am
gentlemen.
too.
Because
Yeah,
I know
had
we've
an
had a few
opportunity to
drafts of this, so
Right,
hopefully
right.
it's certainly something I'm considering a final unless you have changes that we need other review.
I think it's imperative that we get feedback from the personnel board, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Rick, thank you.
Thank you, I'll send it on to them.
Very
All right,
good. Thank you.
Perfect. And next, we have 23 Princeton Drive, transfer
Mr.
of
Chairman?
property.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to comment on the last item you discussed. We'd love to have you Thursday night at the personnel board meeting to discuss that. We'd like that.
Okay, Rick, can you arrange that?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. All right, next is 23 Princeton Drive. We have a letter here from our town council, Jerry Booty, or our former town council, kind of town council, regarding Rick, should I read this entire, should I read this letter?
It's up to the board, just does outline, I think, Town Council Moody was asked what the procedure would be to transfer the property back to the prior owners, and I think he has shown the board how that could be accomplished. So the board would look to either decide to go forward with that procedure,
Okay.
or if not,
Okay, well, I think based on
Obviously,
our
we'll do something different.
last discussion, Mike, I'll certainly hand it over to you. Just want to make sure that if a vote is taken, it should be to authorize the treasurer to put the foregoing in motion upon the conditions described above regarding the transfer of property, so.
That's correct.
This is a piece of property that, well, Mike, why don't I hand it over to you? You brought it up last week. I just want the viewing public to know where we're at.
Well, I'm gonna go back, Mr. Chairman, to say that, you know, when I ran for the Board of Selectmen, I ran to help the people of this community, not hurt the people of this community. And I know that there was a long time where there were taxes not paid on this property. I've talked to Chris in the treasurer's office. I think there are other properties kind of similar in the community. So I think what we need to do is we need to, as we all voted on last week, move forward to, you know, what they call foregoing in motion upon the conditions described above. I would be very happy to make that motion that we would move forward with trying to get the property back to the original owners, as long as, and it's stated here in this letter, that as long as all back taxes, penalties, and any fines or interest that are owed to the town get paid in full. And that would be my motion.
Okay. Is there a second, Bill?
There is a second for the purposes of discussion.
Okay.
So what should be clear here is the town took a property and tax title. The owner missed the deadline. And the town proceeded to go through tax title and claim that property. It was after a lot of years. There was some extenuating circumstances, as I understand it, but the owner finally got a bank to respond to them and forego some claim on a second lien or something. What this does is legal words that the homeowner that owns the property wants to make good on the money that wasn't paid to the taxpayer. Now, we could continue with the tax title and go into auction and sell that property. I don't have any desire to throw people out of their property. If they're talking about making good, our job, as I view it, is to make sure the taxpayer is whole.
Absolutely.
That's all we're entitled to in terms of the town. So if, let's say, for example, the taxpayers were out $100,000 of unclaimed taxes, and the property sold for $200,000, we're not entitled to make a profit on that. It's either judgment that goes towards liens, or it goes back to the homeowner who had equity, in theory. So there's no way that the municipality can make money on a foreclosure and should not. I agree with that. And in this case, the original homeowner is seeking to pay all damages, fines, and become whole again after going through a very difficult time trying to work with banks. I'm comfortable doing that. I didn't get into this to take anybody's property. I don't want to take anybody's property. And if there's a legal vehicle out of that process, I'm happy to take it. So I stand by this. I'm happy to do it. We're talking about a motion to vacate the judgment. I'm happy to do that and authorize the treasurer to move forward with that motion. I'd second that motion. I just wanted everybody to have a clear background on what's happening here. People that own the property get to stay in their property, and I'm happy to do that.
No, thank you, Bill, for that explanation. I think that's very important. And again, I echo the sentiments and comments of my colleagues. I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous. And quite honestly, as you said, it's the right thing to do for Milford family.
I think what's important.
And it was
too-
on the condition, the second was on on the condition that obviously the town get paid and
Correct.
given restitution.
Absolutely.
On the back taxes and penalties, thank you.
And I think what's imperative too, Mr. Chairman, is we should really, we should get the treasurer on the agenda some night and bring him in, let's see.
Tell me more.
How many of these are out there in the community? You know, and if we can do the same thing, and it's not we're not looking to put anybody out of their house, but we also need to know how many of these there are in the community that we can
Absolutely.
work with people, not only in the community, collect, money on the tax roll, but, get them in and just start a conversation.
No, that's a great point. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
All right, under new business, I'm gonna try to get through this. We have a huge executive session this evening.
We have a permit to obstruct application from the Lions Club. They're looking to do a toll road, pennies for site project.
You missed one, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, see, I'm jumping right ahead. Sorry. Yeah, and
It's
this
all
is an
right.
important one, the one I was stressing, okay. Next, agenda item, sorry about that, is the town council and a potential appointment, at least if we can have a discussion. I don't know where the pleasure of the board is. We had 3 candidates that we interviewed at length last week. I know we talked about it briefly at the end of the interviews. I was very impressed with all 3 candidates. Charles, Kevin, and Kimberly were all, as I said, just very impressive, presented themselves well, obviously very experienced, and that's what we were pushing our screening committee for, since we're losing our town council of nearly 40 years. This is obviously a vital position. So again, we formed a screening committee. They went through a dozen applications, interviewed 5 or 6 candidates, 5 candidates, narrowed it down to this 3, and the chairperson, Laura Mann, did tell us that, along with Rick Villani told us again as well, that any one of these 3 are capable of doing the job. I certainly personally went through everything, all of our notes again, after last week. I certainly have a preference. I don't know how you folks want to proceed. Do you feel comfortable talking about the candidates at this point? Do we need more time? I know this is something that, I don't want anyone to feel rushed into, but again, I think we had 3 great candidates in front of us. I guess it's just a matter of what the pleasure of the board is. If you want to know how I rank them, I can certainly discuss that.
You want to use names, numbers? You want to go 1, 2, 3 in the order they were interviewed, or?
Sure, that's easy.
So I went back through them again today, and I look at the 3rd candidate that we interviewed, and one thing that really impressed me about her was her human resources director position. And looking the way we're leaning in the community, I thought, geez, that kind of, might be a plus to us. But you heard, me in our last meeting on TV, I came right out and asked her, well, you went into private practice, then you went into municipality, then you came out of the municipality into human resources, and then now you're in private practice, and now you're looking to get back into municipality. And she did. She gave me a good answer. But then I will go back to the first person that we interviewed, and to our discussion that we just had, a lot more experience, not only in that area, but in municipal government. A lot more experience. Again, you heard me make reference, his educational background. He's got an unbelievable education. But he spent his career in municipal law. And I think with where the town of Milford is now, where we're going, the projects that are coming down the pike, and there's some big projects. We got the new industrial park off of 85. They're still finishing the project that's, Super Stop and Shop.
Water company.
Yeah, the water company is a biggie. So that would be my first choice. Okay. And to our discussion upstairs earlier, I don't think we can wait too long. To Chris's point, thank you. I don't think we can wait. We need to get this person on board and.
No, and we also have to appreciate that these folks are working and they may
Right.
need time to transition. Bill, did you have any, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Want to kind of tackle this?
Mike kind of summed up my thinking.
By the way, he did mine as well. Because I was in exactly the same place.
Yeah.
And I'll explain what, I kind of took it from a different angle, but I actually ended up exactly that. That was my ranking.
So I spent a long time with this, and I vacillated between number 3 and number 1. And I eventually came to a decision that if I were going to make an appointment, it would be to Mr. Bodie. And without any slighting of any of the other candidates, and certainly Kimberly Mr. Bodie is already the chief legal counsel in a community, one that's much larger than ours. He comes with a great deal of municipal experience, as Mike outlined, and I don't want to repeat everything, but we're coming to this conclusion, kind of, thinking out loud. And it was something in terms of the seniority, the experience, the maturity, that just made me feel, that's the thing that set the difference between that and another candidate. Because the HR piece intrigued me as well. But we're talking about bringing on that HR position. So it's for some of those reasons, but mostly the maturity, the seniority, and he's already in charge of a legal department in a much larger, with assistant solicitors and whatnot. So eventually I came to the same conclusion, Mike.
And when you say maturity, Bill, if you remember, one of the things that was brought up that night was the city has 75,000 residents, had 75,000 when he went there, has 75,000 now. When he started, they had 9 employees in the legal department, and they have, 4 now? And he handled it. He handled it. So he's able to work under very adverse conditions, very stressful conditions. So I agree.
No, and that's, again, very similarly, what I liked about Mr. Bodie was, and this is how I kind of described him, going through the paperwork again, was he is the Jerry Moody for the city of Lawrence.
Right.
He has a number of years of experience, mature, as you gentlemen said, and he made me feel very comfortable. Obviously, any one of us who deal with our own attorneys, you want to be comfortable. They should be, getting you through their profession when that's certainly not ours. And again, that's why we looked at the screening committee. But very humble guy he came across, and I think whichever board or committee he's going to work with, if he did accept the position, and obviously in turn if we offer it to him, that I think we run a very high chance of people being able to get along with them and trust them. And I just and Rick, I know we asked your opinion, and you gave and you were very diplomatic. You obviously wanted us to come to our own conclusion as well. But the 3 of us are obviously leaning towards Mr. Bodie. I'd just like the community as well as us to know your comfort level with that based on you being in multiple interviews with him.
Yeah, again, I've been 2 interviews. I clearly could work at any of the 3. I had no reservations about that. I believe in their ability also.
Okay.
So, again, I look.
No, I just always put you on the spot
Appreciate
with
that.
that because, I mean, you folks work with these people every day, and that's not our role.
Yeah, it's one position I work with almost daily, yeah.
No, that's great. I don't know, I mean, I guess this is the chance to go. I mean, you guys have
Mr.
made my
Chairman?
day because I felt the most comfortable with him. And again, he's got a lot of experience, and we're losing someone with a lot of his experience, so I think that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, I think, these folks went through the screening process. They've gone through a lot to get to where they are, and they were worthy of getting to screening process with Attorney Nossel and Attorney Mann. So with that, I think we have an obligation to, as quickly as we can, and it sounds like there's some general agreement here, I would make a motion to enter into contract negotiations with Charles Bodie, Jr., who who's also a Bellingham resident, by the way. We talk about Lawrence, but he's a Bellingham resident. See if we can come to final agreement. Well, you can authorize Rick to do the first round of that and bring to us the details of where that process has gone, and then we can finalize that pretty quick at either at a special meeting or in the next meeting.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman. I think it's the right choice.
No, it is, and I'm glad you brought up that he's a Bellingham resident, because the geography helps as well. So I will vote in favor of that as well, and that's unanimous.
Okay.
And I just want to congratulate you two as well for this. We said we didn't want to go through the initial screening.
Right.
We didn't. We had two capable attorneys, along with Rick and Jerry, just to go through everything, question them. They met in Laura's office. They went through the entire process. And again, even to the other two candidates, just impressed with all three of them. So
Yeah.
I think we had a good process, a clean process, and
Yeah, it was
I'm glad to
void
be a part of
he's a
it.
Void of
dedicated-
politics and,
You drive from Bellingham to Lawrence every day. It's a dedicated individual.
yeah, you're right.
No, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Next, new business, I'll go back to the Lions Club looking for a toll road.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a
That's-
motion to approve their request for a toll road for fundraising.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
And that's for May 12th, 2018, with a rain date of May 19th, from 9 AM to 2 PM at the intersection of Route 16 and 109. I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous. Next, we have our annual Inspector of Animals reappointment. This is from the Department of Agricultural Resources, where we have to nominate an Inspector of Animals, and for the last X amount of years is Rochelle Thompson. And I believe she's still doing a great job, and
Yes.
unbiased, former classmate of mine.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to once again nominate Rochelle Thompson as our Animal Control Officer.
I would second
Our
that.
nomination for Inspector of Animals, let me be clear to the state's wording versus what we use.
And Mike, you had seconded that?
Yes, I did.
I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous.
It's a job that gets done every day without a lot of fanfare and a lot of kindness and consideration to animals and animal owners.
Last item under new business is an email correspondence from the Board of Health asking that Town Council Jerry Moody stay on to, I guess, handle a pending case in the housing court? Or is
Yes,
this, okay.
yes.
Yep.
And also concerns with the Republic Waste contract.
Yeah, Republic Waste, okay, several abilities, Republic Waste. Plan for the, okay, and the water treatment plan, planned for the proposed 40B apartment on East Main Street. So those are three issues that Paul and the Board of Health are looking to keep Jerry Moody on until those responsibilities are fulfilled.
Mr. Chairman, just a concern. So we're putting together a budget for town council. We're entering into contract negotiations for that council. Some of these things could be out there 2 years. So the question is, if we say a new town council needs to ease into the position, and that some open items get to be addressed and closed, that would lead me to believe that we're looking for a 90-day, 120-day assistance to close. There's no time frame here. And when we're talking 40B, planned residential communities, whatever you want to refer to them as, that could take up something much different. So I think we have to be mindful of the bridging of using council versus a long-term project for, because we're going to run out of money, folks. I mean, there's just, you have a position for council, you have a position for associate council, we have a separate line item in our warrant for the water company negotiations. So we can't entertain every effort that would like to continue to use Jerry Moody in perpetuity, as much as they're comfortable with Jerry, and I appreciate that, respect that. Jerry earned that. So we have to be careful.
The last one we did, we only did through the fiscal year.
I don't know if we want to do
That's
that
correct.
or
The
put
board
a
could, and
timeline
then
on it.
we
because-
obviously reevaluate at that
You know, we're
time.
talking about, what, June 30th?
Right.
You know, that seems pretty reasonable.
That's what we did for the school.
Yes.
We're gonna run out of money.
Yeah, and I think that's important anyway, to
Yeah.
stop it at the fiscal year.
Yeah,
because
we
then
need to.
We should have our town council onboarded, obviously, by then. And even maybe an associate council on board by then. Especially with everything going on and all the labor contracts coming up.
But it
this
doesn't
June as
preclude
well.
special case where we might wanna use Jerry for something else.
Absolutely.
So,
So why don't we put that same timeline on, so we're consistent, just like we did with the schools. We're
like
fair,
that.
we're fair across the board, and then we can take it up again at that point.
and we can take it
Because
up
we have
with
to
our town
continue, That's
council.
exactly what we said, same thing. If we have to continue, we'll continue.
Yeah, yeah, we'll
Because
talk
that's a,
about that.
temporary and limited dangers.
And we've gotta figure out where the budget's coming from for any of
Because
these.
we had the meeting upstairs.
So, with that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the Board of Health's request to continue on with the issues that Jerry has been involved with up to June 30th.
And then look at it again when we get to June 30th, see where we are.
Yeah, then we will be meeting with our town council to
Yeah, if the
discuss.
board so chooses at that point.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? I would
Sounds
second
good.
that.
All right, Mike, thank you, and I'll also vote in favor and make that unanimous. Do you have any correspondence?
No correspondence, Mr.
Mike,
Chairman.
one piece of new business, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sure, of course, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Rick, I'd like you to do me a favor, if you would mind. Could you please write a letter to the owner of the property on the corner of 85 and 16, the old Gibbs gas station? Every time I drive by it, and I say to people all the time, in the town of Milford, we have, just using it as an example, we have beautiful, beautiful churches. You're an out-of-towner, you come into Milford for a wedding over the weekend, you have reservations at the Doubletree Inn, and you accidentally get off at Route 85 instead of 109. And the first major intersection you come to at the traffic light, you look to your left, it's absolutely unacceptable. You know, he's had it for sale for a while. I'd like to know where, I'd like to know where they are in the process. Have they had any offers? And if we have to, I want to bring them in. I want to bring them in because it's a real eyesore to our community.
It is.
You know, when you have people that, my boss being one of them, you got the people at Stop and Shop, that plaza being redone. You got Howard Fafford looking to redo his. I mean, there's people spending money in this community to make their properties, really, really acceptable. And that's unacceptable in my opinion. So if you could do that, I would greatly
Sure.
appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's a great point. I think that's been a point of conversation for quite a few people, so it's a good subject to get behind.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Mike, do you have any correspondence?
I do not.
Okay, moving on. We do have an executive session this evening. We're going to be meeting with the fire chief regarding vacation days. We'll be meeting with town council regarding the water rate case. We'll be meeting with town council regarding potential litigation and with the town administrator regarding potential litigation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn to go to executive session for the purposes that you outlined in the executive session agenda.
I would second that.
And also vote in favor and make that unanimous. I need a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I also vote aye. That's unanimous. Have a good night, and thank you very much. We will not be returning back to regular session.